Hey, everybody.
Hi there.
Buddy. Hey, Chris, long time no see.
How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. I'm good, man. Nice to see you, bud.
Oh, thanks for having me tonight. Guest of honor, apparently.
Absolutely. We're going to let you field all the back to school questions.
Oh, well, listen, I've already been there. Too bad.
I know.
I've been doing this since August.
Yeah, man.
Georgie, you got a new do. You're starting to look like Andrea.
Not really new, just straight tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Carrie.
Does someone have a parakeet?
Huh.
Sounds
No,
like that or
that's my window. That's the peepers. That is the night outside my house. So I have the window open. Maybe I should mute. I like that Melanie still has the Waltons background.
I know, I just saw that.
Hey, just so y'all know, I'm gonna be doing the same thing I was doing last time where I'm on some and then I have the video off because I'll be laying down and icing myself and stuff like that.
You feeling any better?
Yeah, I am. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's getting there slowly, but getting there.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We got you, Keith.
Okay, being that it's 7:03, I'm going to call this meeting to order. And we will begin by Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag
of the United
of the United
States
States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
of
for
which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty,
and
justice
justice for
for
all.
all. Thank you. I heard a play ball over there. Okay, Mrs. Castle, could we have a roll call?
Mr. Cunningham. Lieutenant McGee.
Here.
Dr. Drake.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Hipser.
Here.
Mrs. Hopkin.
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis.
Here.
Mr. McCarrick.
Here.
Ms. Pennypacker.
Here.
Mrs. Cunningham.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Castle. Next, we'll have introductions of staff. So let me see, we'll start over here. We have Sandy Castle, our business administrator, and Dr. Andrea Farina, our assistant superintendent. Okay, that's Dana, and Dr. Roach, our superintendent. Doug Kenwood, our facilities director, and Jim Roth, our IT director. And I see a few more faces on there. I see Georgianne Fisher and Kyle, of course. We can't forget Kyle, our solicitor. Who did I miss? Oh, Kim. Sorry, Kim. I see you there. Hi.
Don't forget Chris, too.
Oh, and Chris Morrison, our special guest for the evening. Hi, welcome everyone. Next, we'll do board president's report. Oops, which I just won on the floor. So I just have a short report. We're deep into our search for Sandy's replacement. Big shoes to fill. And I'm excited for the vote today for 4 days all in. And that's about it. I will turn it over to Dr. Roach for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. I just have 132 slides real quick to get through from my report. Actually, this should be a very short report, knowing we have another presentation on a large majority of the work that myself and Dr. Farina are working on. So we'll go through a couple things here quickly. I'm not sure if Lucas Carpenter is in the audience, if he would be raise his hand. Are we able to see him, or should I minimize to bring him in if he's in there? Let me stop sharing real quick. Is one of our students, Lucas Carpenter, are you there? If you are, to raise your hand. There he is. Can someone bring him over? There we go. Awesome. All right, so let me share again. So we'd like to congratulate Lucas, and I will minimize my screen again so everyone can see Lucas on the screen. But he is a Upper Perkiomen High School senior that has qualified as a National Merit Scholarship finalist. So this is a fantastic accomplishment. We want to make sure that we honor Lucas and all of our students. So the information there you can see in terms of qualifications and the additional work that he achieved and accomplished to achieve this great feat in such a small amount of students qualify for this. So we want to celebrate Lucas and congratulate him. So I will stop sharing my screen quickly. If anyone has any questions or would like to talk with Lucas, he's ready and raring to go. Anyone?
Lucas, congratulations. And I think I speak for the whole board for that. That's awesome. Yep, I see Mike Elliott with a thumbs up there. Anyone else have any comments? That's wonderful. Very proud of you.
Lucas, what's your secret?
Good parents.
That was nice.
Good thing to say. Good response.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Lucas, great answer. Do you want to tell the folks what colleges you're looking at?
So I applied to 6 or 7 different colleges, mainly with this in mind, hoping that I would get some scholarship money for it. but right now I think my top three would probably be Villanova, Liberty, or University of Pennsylvania.
Great. Excellent.
Great job.
Congratulations.
We're very proud of Lucas.
Thank you.
Anyone
Great
else?
job. Great job.
Congratulations, Lucas, and good luck.
All right, thank you so much. So moving on here, a couple other congratulations. If I could, Mrs. Cunningham, if you can mute.
Sorry.
I would like to also congratulate Mrs. Pennypecker and Dr. Farina, who are published in the same edition of the High School Today, the Voice of Education-Based Athletics and Performing Arts Activities in the March 2020 edition. I know Mrs. Pennypecker is going to have hard copies to hand out to the board at some point, but just so you highlight, we're again proud of all of the accomplishments here. This is a quick glance. You won't be able to read the whole thing, but a quick title of Mrs. Pennypecker's article and published, Title IX Self-Audit, and also Dr. Farina with her work in trauma-informed care, understanding the impact of trauma, a roadmap for change. So congratulations to both of you on representing Upper Perk in the greatest light. And then finally, I want to share that I have had, with all the craziness going on with COVID and everything, still striving to get into the classroom. So today, Mrs. Wood had invited me in to read to the students in her kindergarten. The chair is small. I'm not that big, but it is a smaller chair. But it was a great opportunity to get into Hereford, to see some teachers walking the hallways and talking with them, as well as the students. And she definitely had a silly bunch this morning. And but it was nice to go to my own library at my house and have my son help me pick out, he's 8th grade, help me pick out a book to read to some kindergarten students. So they had a great time with that. And it was great to get back in front of students. And also, since we've been back and with some of the challenges in the substitutes, I've also been putting myself out there. I did serve as a paraprofessional for half a day in one building, and also had to jump in to do some antigen testing on the first week there to help out. And that's what everyone's doing, not just me. A lot of the administrators, principals are constantly in classrooms, as well as everyone else pulling their weight. Our teachers are doing extra coverage and everything to make this happen. So just highlight that I'm still trying to get out there and work with kids. It's been a great thing to leave the Ed Center or building and say, hey, I got to go read to some students. So I want to at least share that highlight. But everyone is really pulling their weight in this most challenging of times. So we appreciate everyone's efforts. And that really will end my report, knowing we have another presentation on the horizon.
Okay, great. So next, are Ethan and Enoch in there somewhere? That we could have our student representative to the board reports? Okay, I see Enoch.
How's it going?
Hi.
Ethan is out today, so I'll be taking over, and this is my report. So last Thursday, there was a Southeastern Pennsylvania graduation summit. Attendance were Dr. Thomas, Dr. Roach, Dr. Carpenter, and 2 seniors. At the meeting, schools were looking at ways to have a safe graduation ceremony and prom. There was also a senior principal advisory meeting today, and they were also brainstorming ways to have a safe graduation and prom. College Information Night was on March 9th of 2021, like this year. Via Zoom, representatives of 5 local colleges spoke to parents and students about their colleges and ways to apply. There was a junior fundraiser at Charo's on March 10th, and if you missed that one, there will be another one at Tosco's on April 6th. I encourage you guys to go. Hybrid is going well. It's nice to see friends and teachers in person again, and I'm hopeful to get back to normal. I'm also hoping to be able to play spring sports this year because I play tennis. And that ends my report.
Well, thank you, Enoch. We'll see if we can get you there. Next, our solicitors report, Sunshine Act announcements. Kyle.
Thank you, Madam President. My report this evening is really just to comment on 2 items that appear later on tonight's agenda, items 1 and 2 under the action items, and to share some information that the board and the administration are aware of, but certainly not perhaps everyone who may be viewing or attending tonight's meeting may know, which is that I did inform the board and the administration that I'm leaving the law firm that I'm currently associated with, Sweet Stevens, Katz & Williams, and beginning on Monday, I'm joining the law firm of Whistler Pearlstein. So the agenda items, the action items, if approved by the board this evening, approving Whistler Pearlstein would allow me to continue working with the district and serving essentially the exact same role that I have thus far in terms of serving as your solicitor. So the action item with regard to Whistler Pearlstein does maintain the same costs and fees that the district has had, so there would be no change in that. Item 2, with regard to appointing Sweet Stevens, Katz and Williams as special counsel, would allow that firm to continue handling some matters that they are currently handling, as well as if any unique circumstances arises where there's a need for another law firm. So it certainly, over the past almost 3 years, has been a privilege to work with the district, to work with the board, the administration, staff, community. And it would certainly be my pleasure, if approved, to continue to be able to serve in that capacity moving forward. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. And I just want to say congratulations on being partner as well at Whistler.
Thank you.
Next up, we'd like to get an approval of the agenda. Could I find a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to public comments on action items. Dr. Farina.
So we do have 2 public comments that were submitted. The first is Travis Van Zyl. If you're there, can you raise your hand? Travis from Upper Hanover. I don't see Travis. We also had another comment that was submitted, and it's from Ed from Hereford. Ed from Hereford. Okay, Ed, I will allow you to speak. We're going to ask you to provide your first and last name, township of residence, please. Okay, Ed, so you have an older version of Zoom, so I'm going to promote you, which means that we will be able to see you. Hi, Ed, you're muted. Okay, Ed, just give us your name and township. Full name, please.
Again, Ed David Heiser in Hereford Township. And my question is pretty simple. I saw something about a COVID swab or a COVID test for spring sport athletes. And I was just wanting to see, is this an Upper Perk thing or is this a district thing? And again, what's going to be the end product of this thing? Is it going to make our kids safer? Do we know that in fact it works? And what's the incidence of false positives? Possibly.
Dr. Farina, do you want to take that?
Okay, is that your only question, Ed? Only because I know if you have others, we'll give you your time.
No, that's fine. That's it.
So the recommendation to do antigen testing or BinX Now testing for student athletes has been a conversation in Montgomery County. Upper Perkiomen School District is not the only school district that has taken on assurance testing for both staff, student population, and athletes. The BinX Now is from Abbott. It has a high degree of sensitivity in the 97% range. The intention of assurance testing is to identify asymptomatic students who possess enough viral load to transfer it. Athletics are deemed high risk, much higher risk than the classroom environment. So the belief is that with our priority for the instructional environment, we would want to impose all potential mitigation strategies to keep our classrooms as safe as possible for our students and our staff members.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Farina. Did we get Travis? Did we find Travis?
I still do not see Travis.
Okay. Do we have any other hands?
Yes, we have Jeremy Fisher.
And it is on action, in an action item, Jeremy?
Yes, it's on an action item. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. I've got a countdown timer here. Oh, there we go. All right. Thanks for letting me talk. I appreciate it. I really think it's time to send the kids back to school. I spoke not last time, back in October on the same thing. And I'd really appreciate if the kids could go back to school. I sent an email to all the board members and all the administration as well, just voicing some of our concerns. You know, we're not teachers, and you know, we'd like our kids to get the best education that they can get from the teachers at school. We've been blessed with the teachers that our child has, and we just, you know, like Tim to continue in school with his peers, with his teachers, where he belongs. And it would be really good to take them back too. I came across two scholarly peer-reviewed articles from the Cambridge University and also from the American Academy of Pediatrics from their journal as well, talking about the potential mental health issues coming up from the shutdowns, from the lockdowns, from the school closures, partial and full. And it's time to send the kids back. I know there's not a question here and I'm kind of just going on a rant, and I appreciate you bearing with me. But I'd really like you guys to just take the kids back. You know, we love our kids, but I don't know. I also likened it to parents trying to take care of their parents in their twilight years of their life and just not having the medical can behind it. But at some point needing to call it and say, you know, that the medical doctors have to take care of aging folks. So I'm not a teacher, and I appreciate if my kids could go back to school.
Thanks, Jeremy. And I love the singing in the background. That was really cute. Okay, do we have any more?
Yes, we do. We have Dr. Ferris.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Ferris, can you hear me? Dr. Ferris?
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Dr. Ferris.
All aboard. With Mr. Summers going from one law firm to the other law firm and carrying the school district to that new law firm, is there any compensation that has to be paid to Sweet, Stevens, and Kratz?
Is that your only question, Dr. Ferris?
Yes.
Okay. No. How's that for an answer? That was easy.
Not to compete then? Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other hands?
No, we do not.
Okay. I'll close public comment on action items. Next item, could I get an approval on the minutes from the February 11th, 2021 board meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion approved. Next, we'll move on to presentations and discussion, and we'll welcome Mr. Chris Moritzen, Executive Director of the Western Montgomery Career and Technical Center. Hello, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. The virtual floor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to see many of you. I've worked with at least 4 or 5 of you over the last 7 years here at the Western Center. Dr. Roach was nice enough to invite me out this evening to come and briefly discuss some things that have been going on at the Western Center and do a quick review of our budget presentation that we did the other week for the Western Center. I apologize, I'm not as adept as Dr. Roach is getting the screens up that fast. So again, the Western Center, as many of you know, we've been operating on face-to-face education since August, 4 days a week, with Wednesday being our virtual day. It's been fantastic having the students in. We've been able to catch up everything that we missed out on last spring, being closed by the governor's orders and things like that. Just some success over the last 7 years. As you know, Upper Perk has done a great job over the past 3 years, really increasing their number of ninth graders that are attending and applying for spots at the Western Center. This year, we actually have our highest amount of applications. I just checked before, and we're at 408 applications, which is the highest we've ever had in my 7 years. And during a pandemic year, that's even better. So we're really grateful to see a ton of students wanting to come to the Western Center, get involved with some hands-on education, and hopefully, start out in a career right out of high school. I won't read all these to you, but some of the biggest things, obviously, we've increased our enrollment over 60% since 2014. And our test scores on the NACTI have been through the roof. We've been over the state average of 88%. The last 6 years, we've been roughly in the 90s. And one year we had all but one student score competent advanced. So near 99% that one year. As you know, the ninth grade program we started 6 years ago. With that, it started as kind of a cluster program and has morphed into now a full-on 4-year program here at the Western Center. We made that move because of our ninth graders, with a retention rate of them picking their first level classes. Over 96% were staying in that first choice that they had. So we decided it was best to keep them there and just instead of switching and flip-flopping classrooms in the middle of the year, made it much easier to go this rate. Over the past 7 years, we've been able to gain equipment without fiscally strapping the school districts. We've gained about $1.5 million in grant money towards equipment over the last 7 years. So that's been great for our classrooms, being able to keep the technology to the highest level we can, mimicking business and industry right now, and just doing some wonderful things there. And this is all because of the support that we've received from the JOC and the school boards each year when we get to this budget time. So it's been some wonderful things going on. This year, we currently have, I believe we're at 37 students out on co-op right now. So that's wonderful. That means those students are out in the workplace in the afternoon. They're getting paid to learn their skills in their particular field. This morning, we were just informed of our Skills USA competition medalists, and we have 5 medalists this year from Upper Perk, 5 medalists from Upper Perk this year. I believe we had 22 overall, but we had 2 in first place from Quiz Bowl, 2 in second place, 1 from First Aid and CPR, 1 from Job Skills, and 1 in third place from Advertising and Design. That information will be getting disseminated to you guys here in the next few days with names and their programs and graduation years, all that stuff. So, but to move on to the meat and potatoes, just to talk about the budget a little bit, because that's always on everyone's mind around we get to this time of the year. So just to kind of give you an idea how we do things, we start our budget process in August with we ask the teachers for feedback on their previous year budgets, look at their previous spending, look at needs they may have in the classroom. That gets turned into administration. The administration sits as a team, reviews all of that. We start to build a draft budget. I present that draft budget to the superintendents. After feedback from them, typically we host an annual breakfast. Dr. Roche was very upset that we didn't get to have that because he's missed out on bacon this year, but that's okay. He brought the virtual bacon, so we were good. We had our meeting and we kind of worked through any questions that the superintendents and the business managers have together, and then we make our formal presentation in March to our JOC. Within our budget, the biggest expenses obviously are salaries and benefits. Our collective bargaining agreement for our faculty members is only at 0.9. This is covering my, gotta move this to this side, sorry. 0.94 increase for our teachers, for our custodial wages, an increase of 3.5, and other staff increases projected at 3%. And those are all variable. Equipment, and you'll hear if Sandy brings it up or any questions on it. The only increase we had in equipment this year was the upcoming year is to replace the class system. That was just an unexpected expense that we had to add into the upcoming budget. Otherwise, we've been able to maintain our supply budget lines pretty well over the last 7 years, even with the increased cost of copper, metal, food, all the things that we use, building materials, all of those things. So we've done a nice job of the last 7 years while I've been there, being fiscally sound to the districts and making sure that our students have everything they need while staying within our budget. Budget comparisons from last year this year operating budget 2021 was 6.8 million. Our proposed budget is 7.1 million. Within that, we are looking at 3 positions that we looked at last year, but made the decision because of the COVID pandemic that was going on. It was in the best interest to conserve funds for the districts and eliminate those from this current year's budget, but want to still get those positions as they are vitally essential to our programs. We're looking to add an additional guidance counselor. As we know, the social and emotional needs of our students continues to increase as the pandemic goes on. And beyond that, we'd like to also add 2 instructional assistants. Currently, we have 3 instructional assistants for 19 different programs, with our special ed population ranging in the range of 40 to 44% across the building. These instructional assistants are a great help to our students with special needs and helping them become successful. Our increase overall total is about 5.29 to the actual districts. The increased cost for Upper Perk is $87,399 or 4.81%. And Upper Perk will also receive a budget surplus from last year back in the amount of approximately $101,000. Let's see, come on. As you can see, like I said, you can see our biggest numbers are our salaries and benefits. Our salaries have gone down because of some teacher changes. Even with the additional 3 positions, it still makes a less percentage than it did last year. And benefits, those kind of change a little bit some years because some people go on our benefits, some people come off our benefits. And you can see in the 700 line that additional $10,000 is for the class system that we're looking to replace. Member contributions. So your contributions are configured on a 5-year rolling average of your average daily membership. So you can see your 5-year history here. Between Springford and in an ideal world, it's about 33%. Right now, Springford is probably in the lead looking at the 21-22 with you guys in second and Pottsgrove in a close third in their overall percentage of the building. As you can see, the district contributions, this is based on the calculations through all the businesses, all the business managers and everything. So Pottsgrove is at an increase of 40,000, Springford 160,000, and Upper Perk at 87,000. And finally, I'd just like to thank all of you again for your continued support throughout the years. If you haven't been to the Western Center or haven't served on the JOC, it's a great place to be at. Your students do a phenomenal job while they're there. We're greatly appreciative of everything Upper Perk has done to support the Western Center over the years that I've been there. And congratulations to Sandy on her retirement, and we welcome Alan as our superintendent of records. So it's a good Upper Perk year here, and I'm willing to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you so much. Anyone have any questions? I know I can say that any of our members who have served on the JOC have completely enjoyed it.
We appreciate everyone. I saw Dr. Ferris pop on there for a question, so it was good to see an old friend there.
Yes. Any questions, comments? Anybody?
I just want to say I like that you're adding another guidance counselor. I think that we talk a lot about support for kids and stuff like that. So to see you guys, addressing that, I think is good. Just some of that emotional support if needed. And yeah, to Chris's point, it is awesome down there. It is really great. Having gotten a tour, it's a neat place. Glad you could join us tonight, Chris. You're doing good stuff. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
I just had a quick comment. It's great to see that you are implementing those extra supports as we started discussing last year. I did have the pleasure of serving for about a year on the JOC, so that was good. I did have a question on your budget. In general, for me, it's not a huge increase, and for the overall Upper Perk, it's not a huge increase, especially because we're sending more students. But I had a question: what your budgetary reserve number is? What that means? There was a line on that.
So that's basically the. When I first started, since we're not allowed to carry a capital reserve fund, we needed to ensure that if an emergency came up, say a boiler went or a heating and cooling unit went, that we would have a small kitty to pull from each year, basically. So that money each year, unless there's an emergency that requires the use of those funds, that's considered that budget surplus that comes back to the districts, but we just refill the kitty each year in case of emergencies. One of the things that we are planning on doing this summer is an evaluation, getting a 5, 10, and 15-year plan from the architects that we worked with when they did the renovation back in 2010, so that we can have a roadmap as we get to 11 years outside of a renovation. We know that things are going to start to, there's still some parts of that building that are over 50 years old. So we understand that there's going to be things that are going to need to be fixed, and we want to make sure that we can plan accordingly in the years to come so that there aren't any surprises. That's really our goal there, is to, continue to be fiscally sound, but we have that reserve there, the in case of emergency fund, if a chiller went, anything like that we would at least have that 50,000 to get the project started and move forward.
That's clear. That's more than enough detail. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, can you give us, do you have any idea of a percentage of the students that are out there in the joint workforce that graduate and actually have jobs when they're leaving?
Last year was a lot more difficult to track kids, and honestly, the postgraduate follow-up is really difficult because kids change their email addresses more than they change their headshot on Instagram. So it's really keeping track of those. I can, going through our students, we have a good percentage that enter the military. We have not a small percentage, but a smaller percentage of students that enter a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution after. I would say our approximate job placement rate or job attainment rate right out of the high school is somewhere around the 40 to 50% of those graduates. Now, typically our graduates or seniors that are about 130 students a year, 140 students a year. So it really depends. Some kids.
It's still 40% isn't a bad average for students coming out of high school.
I'd love it to be 100, but we have goals to shoot for that way.
Mhm.
I can also tell you that in the past week, we've had 2 manufacturing companies reach out to us about starting apprenticeship programs. They are just chomping at the bit for any kid that's ready to get out in the workforce and are willing to pay them really good money to get there. So, we continue to build those. One of the things that we did this year was we added a welding program. I can tell you our applications are through the roof for welding next year. Advanced manufacturing is up there as well again. All the new programs that we've added over the years have continued to grow and flourish. It's just really an exciting time in CTC, and I'm excited to be a part of it as we continue on the road forward. We have got a phenomenal team over there that, we all work together to make sure that the kids have everything they need. And it's a great environment. I love my staff and I love what they do. So
We're lucky to have you there. Thank you very much.
It shows. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? I don't see anyone else. So thank you again, Chris. We really appreciate you
Thanks,
coming
Chris.
over.
You're very welcome. Have a wonderful evening, folks.
You too. Okay, next we're going to move on to presentation B, which is continuing the conversation on increasing in-person instruction. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Roach and Dr. Farina.
Thank you very much. I will start with the presentation. Continuing the conversation from last week, from last workshop meeting. Wanted to bring up again the same guidance that's here. I know it's this first slide we typically see, but again, to reframe our minds on some of the metrics that are there. And then you remember this complicated slide when we added the CDC information, just as a reference point, not that that is officially adopted by the county or followed by us at this time. The information was out there for a while, so I want to make sure that it's still in front of us. And with that, you can see the most recent information. This is from last Friday, where the county, again, dipped down into or moved into the moderate at the 96.9 cases per 100,000. And the positivity rate continues to increase at that 5.1, and 5 seems to be a major marker there. So we're very close to that. So we're moving in the right direction, as we said last time. And it is the right time for us to have this conversation and this discussion. And you can see on the bottom there, the rates at Berks are also moving in that same direction. They were, I believe, the different county was in moderate as well. These are the local municipality cases. I know some of these are questioned based upon the size of per 100,000, but you can see a slight uptick last week in the specific number of cases. But you can see the overall trend there moving in one direction, but it is a little higher than were the previous week. And then the positivity of across 14 days as well. But the exciting part of it is, I'm not sure why I keep hearing myself.
Andrea, could you mute?
Is that better? That is, yes, thanks. The part that we are excited on an update is the vaccination conversation. We know this was brought up at the meeting a couple weeks ago, and then you've also seen Governor Wolf has dedicated the Johnson & Johnson allotments from the recently approved Johnson & Johnson vaccine to the district itself. So let me walk you through the top chart and then this bottom chart. Midweek last week, we were informed, and Mrs. Fisher has been intricate in doing a tremendous amount of work in here. We were informed through the IU, so working with Dr. Speaker and Mr. Hurd at the IU on the vaccine distribution, that the county itself got 8,000 vaccines, and it was going to be all used for educators. And our allotment, it was 175 doses for Upper Perk based upon whatever procedures they put out there to determine that. So a survey went out last Wednesday and was closing at 5 o'clock last Friday. So a very quick turnaround. Our staff really stepped up. I reached out to a bunch of people, including Mr. LaSalle, to help get the message out to really, we needed full participation because regardless of how you fill the survey out, participation was important for this next round. So we got a full allotment of our vaccines for our staff. So 517 surveys were initially completed as of last Friday. I know we don't have 517 staff members, but it did include it was also sent out to bus drivers. It was also sent out to coaches that are not full-time employees. So it was a large amount there. But you can see from the top part there, the responses from 517 were 146 people that said yes, they had already received the vaccine prior to March 5th. There were 15 that were in process, and there were 356 that said no, they had not received the vaccine as of last Friday. So when you look at that 356, the responses were there were 105, and they were in the bottom chart on that page, 105 that said that they were not interested in getting the J&J at that time, and 251 that said they were interested. So as I shared, we had 175 allotted in our first wave, which is coming next week, and we had 251 that said that they were interested at that time. Things changed tremendously over the weekend as things are rolling forward. So with some frustration points working through the state and signing up and all that kind of stuff. But I'm happy to say on this next slide here, stay on the left side with me quickly. As things have been improving, we have fully vaccinated prior today was 146. Partially vaccinated, that has changed over the weekend. People got it over the weekend or they got it on Friday. Those numbers have changed. We have 175 that are participating next week on March 17th when we have our day at the IU to go with a couple other schools in the allotment. We had 105, as you remember from the last slide, that were not interested. We did have at the same time early last week, we had the expanded 1A. So people that qualified under that let Mrs. Fisher know, and we were able to secure tokens for them to go in and sign up for that. So there were 14 there. And as of today, and actually it just changed, but I'll use the numbers that are on the screen. It actually is down to 40. We have a need for 41 more vaccines. So as we're sitting here, anticipating next Wednesday when we have our time from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. for our staff to go down the 175 that have been identified. We were given a very strict priority list. The priority list, the priority one was teachers and staff that work with special education students or students with disabilities, as well as English language learners or other similar groups. The second priority group was pre-K to 5 teachers and classroom aides. And then the third group was bus drivers, food service, and in similar positions that work directly with the two previous groups I mentioned. And then the fourth group was staff that work in person sustained with students. And there was a fifth group, which a large group fell into. I'm proud to say when we cut that 175 line over the weekend, that all of our UPA members were included in that 175 for the opportunity, as well as 32 people from 31 bus drivers, several of our elementary food service, and I pretty much wrapped it up, but it was definitely a large group and a large percentage. So now we'll move to the right side chart. After next Wednesday, after the 17th, the numbers there on your far right will be the 91.8% of our staff that filled out the survey. I forgot to tell you that it moved from 517 to 502 because there were about 15 people that, not 15, probably 10 or 12 people that double entered the survey, either used their home email and a district email, and then 2 or 3 other people that somehow got in there that we couldn't figure out where they were from, which happened. So we cleaned that up and scrubbed that out. Anyway, after next Wednesday, people that will have been vaccinated as well as will have had the opportunity, or they said they were not interested in the opportunity, or had gotten a token or a partial at the time, is 91.8% overall. And the remaining group is now 40 based upon an email I just saw. We're waiting for round 2 for those last 40, and that literally has moved every day now this week. One person has kind of ticked off that list as someone says they're not interested, someone has gotten the opportunity somewhere else. We're able quickly to push the next group, the next person into that list, and that's what just happened. So we're down to roughly 8% of our staff that had requested. The groupings that are not included, that are included in that 40, some of them are our coaches, so out of season as well as current season. They're in the priority list. Some of our secondary priority groups, secondary maintenance and facilities that don't have direct in contact with students, and then a couple other, and also people here at the education center, because there's not that direct contact with students. So that number is tremendous, and hoping to get that down as quickly as we can. And we're on the short list in case anything comes available. There are 1 or 2 districts that their whole allotment covered their whole staff, but there are other districts that have well more than 40 waiting to get on this round 2. So we're excited that that could be happening by the end of March for that remaining group, but that continues to be a work in progress. So I know that was a big question at our last meeting. Now, with that being said, thinking about 175 people that are going to be getting their vaccine next Wednesday from 2 to 9 p.m., we are going to be, I don't know if it's requesting from the board because I usually make this decision on a snow day, but we would like to make March 18th a virtual day for the entire day, for the entire district, with having 31 bus drivers that are going to be out and seeing the impact that it's going to have on 175 of our employees or staff members. That would be the safest and most prudent way to approach that day. There was discussions and questions about an asynchronous day, which we are not going to move forward with. We're going to move forward with a virtual day. Buildings will still be open for staff to come in. It's not like the buildings are closed on a typical Wednesday. And if staff members are going to work from home and are able to sustain, if they have reactions and are able to work through that in terms of any sickness or soreness, that would be fantastic and welcomed. That's part of that piece. I also don't know how we'd handle 30-something bus drivers that wouldn't be able to go on that day. This may impact the non-pub buses, and I'll work with Mrs. Balone on that. But if there are staff members that are sick, because we know that they are definitely second dose with Moderna and Pfizer, and probably with Johnson & Johnson, the only dose. If they're sick, they'll have to take the sick day, and if they can't work, they can't work. We get that. But that has been our standard with the follow-up for the sickness from the doses. But we're going to call the virtual day. I'll probably communicate that tomorrow so families are aware. Not thrilled with it, but I think it's the most prudent way to handle a large amount of vaccines, and it's a short-term step back for a long-term benefit with the potential of that grouping as you saw those numbers. So I will pass it over to Dr. Farina, who's going to take us through the part here.
Thank you. So you have sort of our community and our district context for what our cases are and what that looks like. We all know that in our last meeting, we talked very much about vaccinations. And so now you have that information. The piece of information that is still at the forefront of all of our decision-making is the implications to being less than 6 feet. As an administration, the recommendation was to transition, but there are implications, and that, we want to be very transparent about that. Those implications are the distance, the social distancing truly does and is dependent on the enrollment based on students, based on their grade, based on the school, in terms of how far apart desks are. I think it's safe to say on average on our current enrollment, we're seeing somewhere between 4 and 6 feet. However, there are some pressure points. There are environments where that distance 4 to 6 feet is not likely to be achieved. One has always been transportation. So we've moved forward with that, knowing that we could not achieve that in transportation. The cafeterias are also an environment, particularly in our high school and in our middle school. Bringing kids back in 4 days, there are a lot of students. We will apply all other mitigation strategies, but we just want to be very transparent. There are also some unique environments, labs. Any kind of lab creates an environment where kids may be instructionally closer because of the nature of that physical structure, that classroom, that assignment. The teachers will do their best into socially distancing kids. However, we don't want to be disingenuous to families to say that it might be less than that. there may be times when kids are closer than 4 to 6 feet. So we just want to put that out there. That has always been the conversation and a decision-making factor. However, we did not have any of the discussions about lowering incidence rates, vaccinations, and all the other mitigation strategies that we've been able to adopt over the course of time. So if we fast forward one slide, we really aren't in the same place as we were in the fall. And I need to articulate that very clearly. The district has enforced some fairly significant mitigation efforts, and we will continue to do so. Our recommendation would not be to loosen any of these mitigation efforts as we increase student participation in schools. Masking is something that we believe very strongly has the greatest protective mechanism to stop the transmission of the virus. Hand washing, respiratory etiquette, cleaning the facilities, making sure that there is a focus, which also played into the recommendation for Wednesdays. Contact tracing, we have adopted a very thorough contact tracing process that has been well coordinated. It's vetted. Many of the families in the district have been in contact with us. So we feel really good to be poised to welcome kids back and still be able to address the contact tracing, which, if you remember, is sort of the #1 factor to not having to close down for 14 days. How quickly we can contact trace is that sole factor for school closure recommendations. We have a wonderful relationship with the Montgomery County Office of Public Health. I have Michelle Masters on the line regularly. They are responsive. They help us through, they help our families through. So I feel really confident about that. And in terms of where we are in the county, we do have, and I'm proud to say we do have, one of the most expansive antigen testing programs in the county. We have the capacity to do assurance testing on staff. We do symptomatic and recommending asymptomatic student testing, and we can test high-risk populations. And so, any family who's been a close contact or had a sick child in the last 2.5 months knows where the Ed Center is, and they use us readily. And then we also, the layer of mitigation that has really worked in our favor for this decision is the access to vaccinations for our staff working with our students. Dr. Roach is going to talk a little bit more about some of those decision-making considerations.
Thank you, Dr. Farina. So again, I think in some of the feedback and conversations with our administrators over the past 2 weeks since the last presentation, we want to make sure that we are striving. The standard is 6 feet whenever to the greatest extent feasible and possible. That is the goal. That may involve shifting desks when students are absent to make sure that that gets addressed. At the same time, we are stating and have continued to state, it's not on the slide here, that we're doing our best and we'll set the standard of maintaining that distance in the front of the room and the area for our teachers to teach. So when principals were asked to measure desks and measure rooms, they was with that 6-foot barrier for their teachers, because having them impacted is hugely impactful for that classroom and the learning there. So that is also part of that conversation. Number 2 here is extremely important to me, because I think as we're having this conversation, more and more things are, well, what about this? What about this? All we're trying to do is increase in-person instruction. That is the goal. And as we're sitting here in March, looking at the calendar to the end of the year, we want to make sure that we finish as strong as we can. But this is not, we're not taking this lightly and saying that this is over and that it's kind of not an issue anymore and everything's going to resume. We're not opening the doors to visitors. We're not opening the doors to evening activities. We're not at this time taking rentals. We're still focused on the main thing, which is school, the school day and the school activities that are there. Yes, there are some special ones, as was mentioned from Enoch and Dr. Carpenter for certain buildings, and we can have those conversations, but we have to continue to remember that this is not completely business as usual as we're all waiting and hoping to get there as quickly as we can. So some feedback that I received from the letter on Tuesday was talked about the term re-rostering or changing of teachers and students. Again, this is not a goal or something that is a great conversation, but as more students come in and as we have to adjust staff, there is a distinct possibility that may happen in some areas. The reason it says elementary is the way the secondary structure is the rosters won't change because the students that are on there already are in blue or in hybrid, blue hybrid, gold hybrid, or virtual, so that their rosters have not changed the whole time. The structure that we have in the elementary and parents are fully aware of how things got shifted around for the hybrid, that is still a possibility moving forward. So it's not the only way to avoid having any changes in your teachers is to simply not change what we're doing right now. That's the only way to maintain that. Again, the principals will work tirelessly to take a look at that, but the impact of students since Tuesday already, of people coming in, requesting to come in or contacting already, being concerned because we did have the final declaration already, that will impact the rosters. So we'll do our best as we did through the hybrid, because we did have some transition time after January 7th when that was announced, and the principals did a fantastic job. So the plan, if this is approved, is if you're currently in person, we're planning on you to be in person for 4 days. If that's what's passed, you don't have to do anything as a parent or a student, and the same with virtual. The question is, if you want to change your model at this point, we will do our best to meet all those requests, beginning as soon as the meeting's over, all the way through the end of the day next Thursday will be your time to contact your principal. The email there is on the screen, will be concluded in the update tomorrow, to reach out to the principal and speak with them directly. You don't have to go into Skyward and make that change. Everything will be handled to the principal. That way they can see and monitor any of those changes that are coming on. But following next Thursday, we're not able to make requests because we have to really settle in. There's a tremendous amount of work to be done. Bus routing, all the class and rosters, all those types of things. So really, this is the week. So it will be in the message tomorrow. Probably send another one out next Tuesday, so everyone's aware of that information.
It's almost shocking, but as we sit here with this action item on the agenda, we can put a snapshot, a PowerPoint slide with what the rest of the year looks like from April 6th forward. And so what we wanted to provide the board, as well as those of you viewing this, is what the next several months would look like if this were passed this evening. The green, the solid green, not the very bright green, the neon green, are the instructional days that are left. This is in the fashion of a 4-day week, as the administration is recommending, with the preservation of virtual Wednesdays. As you can see, if we fast forward to the end of the school year, there are only 6 of those. So on occasions where there may have been an in-service or a holiday, we did try to make sure that we were still getting 4 instructional days in those weeks. The 2 red are in-service days. The 9th and 10th of June are our early dismissals, with the Thursday, June 10th, being the proposed graduation date. And then the last student day, which is also an early dismissal, on June 11th, with June 14th being an in-service day as well. So go ahead.
I just want to mention that what you're seeing here is a result of a draft calendar that, if approved, would be on the March 25th workshop. This takes into account the 2 snow days, and it removes that 3rd day that we didn't use. So anything forward, which we would hope that we wouldn't have type of thing in April, would need to be a virtual day to maintain this. If for some reason something went down, unfortunately, that 11th would kick to the following week, which I know is not popular. But this reflection here is with 2 snow days used and all the other virtual days counted. But popping that 3rd one that we were kind of holding for a while is not in there. So we look pretty good at this step, but I wanted to just make sure that this would be the final at that set.
So are we able to ask questions, or oh, never mind, you got a whole bunch still. Never mind, sorry.
So, as we sort of conclude, before I turn it back to Dr. Roach for our final slide, again, the conversation is about the assumption of risk. I can't not express from my seat and my role over the last year that we are in a very, very different place than we were in the fall when we adopted virtual and then moved into the hybrid model. We have extensive mitigation efforts and have invested the time and effort. And, I think what we need everyone to be aware of is that we're in a place where we can assume that risk, and ultimately what will be impacted is the exclusion and quarantine requirements, and much debate has been over the distance, whether it's 4 feet or 5 feet, anything less than 6 feet gets quarantined. So from a quarantine and exclusion perspective, just so the board is aware, that the only question from my perspective, if it's less than 6 feet, quarantine is required. The good news is we have lots of mechanisms to test out of quarantine, making that an easier, shorter quarantine than it would be under normal circumstances. So with that notion in mind, I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Roach for the final comment.
Yep, it's simply just the recommendation that was shared on Tuesday, following many conversations, and as well as administration. This is the recommendation to finish the year and increase our in-person, and where we are with all the factors included, that this was the final recommendation that we felt most comfortable with. So that brings it to board question.
Thank you, too. Questions, Stephen? I see your hand up.
So I have a couple questions. One would be, we're obviously going to maintain the health screener, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. My second one would be, are families still allowed to keep their children virtual if they so choose?
Yes.
Okay. And then obviously knowing that if we're having 4 days a week in school versus 2, maybe some people will start sending their kids back more. Are we eventually going to be doing online and in-person teaching simultaneously with the same teacher? Like I'm just thinking if we eventually have more kids coming back, we're going to have less resources to do virtual and less resources to do in person. There's going to be more kids maybe in school. At what point do we think about switching to where teachers do a mix of both in the same classroom?
You mean for elementary?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that is dependent on what happens in that change window. You know, when I can't answer that right now because there are enough students out there participating virtually at the elementary level that warrants that position. But, you know, that's why we really did truncate that change window, because we need to see how much movement there is. But we could return more students then we would have to take a look at what our UPOLA staffing is at the elementary school. That is a very real consideration that we have, always knowing that we are going to maintain a virtual option regardless. So we have to be poised to make some recommendations when we see those numbers.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Questions? Go ahead.
So with regards to kind of what Steve just touched upon right there, so with the K-5 kids, right? What happens if one of them goes into quarantine? Do they pop into the online teacher? Is that the plan right now?
I mean, yes, right now they would have to, I mean, it would be similar, you know, under, I'm going to air quote, normal circumstances, you know, where we would ask that child, you know, to participate at home, but to transition into the virtual classroom so they're not losing that contact. Because essentially we're going to be talking about 5 days for non-household close contacts, 5 days until they can come here to the Ed Center to test out of quarantine, if the parent chooses to do that.
Is there any worry because, you know, say like an online teacher already has like 25 kids and all of a sudden she's got like, or he's got 35, 40 kids. Is there any backup plan if it gets a little nutty with how many kids go into the quarantine?
So, I mean, I can tell you looking at our numbers right now, I would not imagine that would happen. But, you know, I would say, you know, 35 is really sort of the high end marker for a virtual environment. And so we would have to, you know, think about what that would look like if it would, you know, remember, it's not, you're right, it's a short term change because it's 5 days from the last contact with somebody. So, you know, for 5 days, that kid could be in that, you know, virtual class and then come back to brick and mortar. And so, which is another reason why maintaining those Wednesdays, where if we have kids in those situations, we can honor and discuss and plan and talk about what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, we would not want to see it go above 35.
Okay. I mean, and that also, I mean, to what you just said there, that kind of alludes to one of the reasons that Wednesday thing, at least to me, seems important, is for those kids that happens to, and to try to keep everybody on the same sort of path. As far as like parent pickup goes at the different buildings and stuff like that, I mean, I know there's been some discussion, but just if we could talk about it here a little bit, is there any idea like of adding additional people to help? Do we have enough people to do parent pickup? Because obviously we're trying to, as a district, encourage people to, you know, hey, if you don't have to use the bus, you know, drive your kids in. how are we anticipating the increased drop-off numbers? And are we going to need additional help for those things?
Help has been a challenge for the middle school specifically already with trying to get crossing guards, and from the company that we are partnered with, they have struggled and have not been successful. The key there, we have actually opened the 4th and 5th grade center a little early to let people drop off and get off of the Jefferson Street there. So that has been successful as in the past week or so, according to Mr. Vigilante. But in general, I think it's going to be, we're all going to need to be patient to see how it pans out. This is going to be a new set for the entire year. Principals are going to continue to reiterate the practices at each level, ask people to arrive early and bring your patience, right? Sometimes things get messed up when people start to drop off over here and drop off over there and try to skirt through that. So, we have limitations, and we'll continue to do our best with that. I don't have a magic key to fix it. That's everywhere, but you're true. That is true. There will be more drivers on the roads, and we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of the walkers as well.
Absolutely, because having dropped off my kids once or twice when the weather was bad, it really is up to the parents who are dropping off the kids to make sure that they're paying attention, maybe, putting their cell phone down and, doing what they need to do with all that. As far as like lunches go, I mean, this might sound ridiculous, but is there any thought to like moving the kids outside to keep the spacing to eat, like at the younger levels or anything like that?
So I can tell you that, that it has been a discussion way back when. We talked about sort of those flexible environments for eating. I know other school districts have allowed kids, that's something that we just need to make sure there's supervision, make sure that we're cognizant of where the kids are. And we would allow the principals to sort of have some discretion if that's appropriate based on spacing.
Okay.
Or having it in your classroom, maybe. I don't know if that's a possibility, just because it would double the distance. Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, Mike, are you done? I see Rayanne has her hand up for a while here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, something else might pop in my head, but go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Rayanne, go ahead.
Going back to the vaccines, are the vaccines voluntary? We're not like forcing anyone to take a vaccine, are we?
No.
Correct, they're voluntary.
Okay, and then if we could do 4 days, why can't we do 5 days? Because at this point, I think every day matters. These kids aren't going to get their instructional time back. And doing all this work with all these changes and the busing planning, we're only going to do it again for 5 days. And it just seems like it creates much more work for everyone. I think it's like time to rip off the Band-Aid and just go back to 5 days. If you talk to Souderton, they didn't even close. They've been 5 days since September. And then you have North Penn, Quakertown, Palisades, and Penridge. They're all full-time already. What are we waiting for?
So can I just weigh in on, I can weigh in because I had an opinion about the recommendation from the position of a pandemic coordinator. Masking, distancing, hand hygiene, and the ability to contact trace are really powerful in protecting our community. If I could describe to you the work that gets done in the area of contact tracing, the Wednesdays have been very, very protective for our community and not required us to close. There have been times when we almost hit those numbers, but because of the Wednesdays, we were able to do the contact tracing necessary. The goal is to create that buffer to allow us to make sure parents are responding so we stop the spread. The last thing that we want is an outbreak. And so, I think we have to honor that that's the work that needs to be done from a community health perspective.
But how is Souderton doing it?
So I also, I will also say, I think it's very important that we acknowledge the work that the teachers are doing. We have 2 instructional programs that will be running parallel to one another. And Souderton doesn't have a virtual option, so I'll weigh that in. We are going to respect and maintain the virtual program simultaneously to honor and respect parents' wishes in this environment. And so I think the work that teachers need to do is ever present, and that is what that time is really afforded for.
But how is Souderton getting that done if they don't have off every other Wednesday? Or every Wednesday?
Souderton has had its own issues within the process. Souderton has had its own issues. I mean, everybody has different perspectives. Souderton is an outlier, but it's not like all sunshine.
What issues? Because I was talking to a teacher and she was telling me everything's been fine all year long. That
Everything has been fine. That's what you've heard?
That's what she told me.
That's what you've heard? Oh, that's
what I heard.
Yeah, I would chuckle at that because that's not true.
Okay, well, what did you hear?
I'm not going to get into that. This isn't Gossip Corner.
So I would just say that, if we focus on the decision for Upper Perk, I think that the recommendation stemmed from academic integrity and maintaining a health and safe environment that includes some very significant mitigation efforts that may or may not be present in other districts.
Thanks. Anyone else have any more questions?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to say something. Go ahead. Great. I just wanted to thank Dr. Farina and Dr. Roche for the amazing way that they have handled this. And I agree 100% with Dr. Farina. We are not where we were 6 months ago. So, and that's largely in part, I know, to her efforts. So I just wanted to publicly say that, I am, as another pandemic coordinator, I'm so envious of the mitigation procedures that you have put in place at our school. And I just wanted to publicly say that I'm on meetings every single day with people from around the state and sometimes the country. And I don't know anybody who's handled it as well as you. So,
agreed.
And that includes me, who is a pandemic coordinator. You're way better at it. So thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any hands up. All right, well, thank you both very much for all of the information, as always.
Madam President, before we move on to the old business, there was one other item I forgot to mention earlier, and that was just that the board did meet in an executive session on Monday, March 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. For the purpose of discussing a matter of personnel, and just wanted to get that in. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay.
Melanie,
Go ahead.
I did have a quick comment. So while we were talking, I just looked at our last year's data. So just for everybody to remember where we started, in March, we were about 11% positivity. In April, I think right around when we locked down, Montgomery County was at 28%. We dropped down in the summer and warmer weather, and then we came back up to 12 or 13% in the winter. And that's when we started all the lockdowns. Now we're back down to 5. So you could see sort of the seasonal aspects. What we do today with in terms of instruction is different than what we did last year, because there weren't these mitigation efforts in place, and also the seasonality. It looks like there's a trend that way as well. So I think those are a couple of the factors that make it a little bit different than it was in November when we were talking about hybrid or staying virtual when we made those decisions. Just my observation looking at the last year's data, and that'll also impact my decision when we have our votes later.
Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else before I move on to our next old business? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to old business, which is a motion to approve Upper Perkiomen School District to participate in spring athletics as per PIAA guidelines and the revised UPSD Spring Athletics Health and Safety Plan, which includes weekly mandatory COVID-19 antigen testing for all student athletes and coaches.
So moved.
Discussion? No discussion?
Yeah.
Why are we testing them? And we didn't test the fall sports.
Go ahead, Dr. Farina.
Sure, thanks. So I just, for context, antigen testing in our coordination with the Office of Public Health and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, antigen testing did not become a possibility until middle of January. And in order for us to get our entire nursing team trained, we did that in January, and then we could not turnkey for winter sports. But I just, sports is voluntary. It presents additional risk in terms of social distancing. I'm a huge sports fan, and this is just an additional layer for sports because the preservation of the academic environment is definitely our priority. And so, I feel very strongly that our responsibility is to prevent, respond, and mitigate. Antigen testing in athletics, you'll see it in colleges and universities as a way to prevent the athlete, or to help protect athletes, but then also to prevent transmission to non-athletes who just are coming to school. And so, that's why that recommendation unfolded.
Are all schools doing this?
So the county has definitely talked extensively about testing of athletes. As I mentioned, between other districts and North Penn, Lower Merion, and Upper Perk are really at the forefront of testing. And so those are the districts that you will see have.
So they could be
discussed and
potentially, the other team could potentially not have been tested.
That's correct.
Okay, so are we forcing this on our team, or is this voluntary?
No, it's mandatory.
So
The
if they don't get it, they
recommendation for the-
can't play.
Can you let her finish the statement? Sorry.
I am.
Yeah, so we have, the motion reads as mandatory. And so any athlete that does not want to participate would not play. That is correct.
Okay, but there's only 4 other schools in the county that are being tested. So there's really, unless everybody's being tested that we're playing against, it's really not another layer of protection because it's only our team that's getting this done.
Which protects our students, though.
I was going to say, may I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Judy. To me, this is a what's the word I'm looking for? This is non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned when it comes to sports. I've had a lot of meetings with Dr. Coffin and Dr. Rubin down at CHOP, and what they talk about is layered mitigation. And if you decrease one, you need to increase others. And we didn't test our kids in the fall, but it was okay because they weren't seeing the other kids in class. We didn't do it in the winter, but again, it was okay because there was 6 feet of social distancing, so they weren't close contacts. Now we're getting rid of the social distancing. So this is a way to identify non-symptomatic kids before they spread it to their whole class. So what Dr. Rubin says is, if you're in an increase in school instruction, you should get rid of sports. Instead of getting rid of sports, we're going to test them so we can identify them early. It's the smartest thing we can do. Again, we are so lucky that we have people at our school district who can administer this. And I won't vote for sports unless it's there.
Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree. I mean, I've been against sports both in fall and winter due to the fact that it was close contacts and the fact that it also served as a detriment to our other kids who were not in sports. I thought it was unfair, the percentage of kids who want to participate in sports, causing issues in the regular school. I mean, I'm definitely for the sports as long as we're doing the antigen testing because it makes our population safe. I mean, and the other thing is we didn't have this option back in winter when we first started in winter. I mean, this is new. I mean, at our board retreat, 8 of us all got the testing done here. I mean, it was quick, simple, easy. It was a joke. I mean, it went in and out. You were done, you had your result, and if you got a false positive, you would get a rapid test instantly. So it did cover you for the fact that, okay, there is a false positive, there is the backup option that is the better option anyway. So it did add a layer of protection, which does make me feel much more comfortable in having kids who want to play sports be in with our general population kids.
And if I could just piggyback right off of what you said, Steve, having had both the touch your brain inside your nose with the one that you get down a green lane and the one that we do, which is basically like sticking a little bit of your finger in there. It's gross, but you get the idea. It's not as, it doesn't feel as awkward. I mean, look, I get it, you know, but it's not nearly as bad as the one that they give you a green lane. So I was actually really glad that they gave us that test for the school board, because it's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, test me. I mean, I get it. Like, people are like, oh, I don't want to have to be forced. But as we've talked about all the time, playing sports is, you know, it's not a guarantee. Like, it's a luxury. It's an extra thing, you know, if you so get it. So if this is the way for us to have sports for our kids, then you know what? Then this is what we got to do. And it is about keeping kids safe. And I've consistently through this process been amazed, just from watching, you know, my kids in scouts or my kids in sports, of what my kids are willing to do to play. Like, you got to wear a mask to play basketball. All right. You know, okay. You know, sucking it up and doing it. And, you know, it kind of is what it is. So.
I mean, I wouldn't even mind subjecting myself to it every week just to prove a point that it's nothing bad or nothing painful or nothing that's going to hurt kids. It's actually just going to protect everyone.
I would be up for a free, easy, quick test like that too. It, like you said, it's easy. It's not.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. Keith.
I supported fall sports. I will support spring sports. You know, I ultimately said that when I supported fall sports, we have to give our people the choice. We have to give our residents, our students, our athletes the choice to participate, whether or not to take the risk. Again, it's their choice whether they decide to take the test and participate or not. I want to get our kids back to normal as much as we possibly can, and this is a step in the right direction.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Carrie, go.
Yeah, I had a couple quick comments. One is for the testing. Well, if the other teams aren't tested, it's actually a stronger argument for our teams to be tested, because if the other teams aren't tested and they're positive, then our students get it and they become positive, then they could take out their whole class when they're all back in one classroom. So by having that proactive testing once a week, I think that would eliminate a lot of the problems that we may get from coming in contact with those other districts. Number one, that was my one comment. And then number two is in the sports, as many of you may be aware, I voted against the fall sports and the winter sports because we were on an upswing, and also there are indoor activities. These are outdoor sports, and we have the additional mitigation with the testing. So in that case, for me, I think the spring sports, especially since we're on a downward trajectory with cases and also vaccinations, it's not an unacceptable situation anymore for me personally.
Dina.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Stephen and Mike said, that I just don't understand the fear of this test. It was so easy and so non-invasive. It just gives us an extra layer of protection. If we didn't have it before, thank God we have it now. Let's take advantage of it.
Thanks, Dana.
If I could just convey one final benefit that, you know, had we had this in the fall, we're able to contact trace and test very quickly. That means we can minimize the quarantine and isolation of kids quickly. And so they can return to play. Conversely, without something like this, you're talking about extended quarantines for multiple athletes, and then likely and potentially a shutdown of the sport altogether in order for us to do this. We're also talking about sports that have lots of participants, which poses a greater challenge. You know, if you have up to 80 male track athletes, one positive case could could really plume. But with those mitigation efforts and testing, we can minimize that. And so more athletes will be able to participate more regularly in the case of a positive COVID test. And so, I understand, sort of the dynamic of it, but it really is to protect the community and to keep kids participating. So I just need to say that.
Thanks, Dr. Farina. Anyone else? Peg, any? Okay. Well, having exhausted our discussion on this, if we're ready to take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passes. We'll move on to new business.
Melanie, if I could I make a motion to approve the entire personnel report? That's letters A, and that would be it. All of A in its entirety.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, all of those are approved. We'll move on to action items. First, number one would be motion to appoint Whistler Pearlstein as district solicitor effective March 15th, 2021 for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year and for the 2021-2022 school year in accordance with the terms of the proposed memoranda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm very thankful that we'll be able to keep the same rates that we've had with Sweet Stevens, maintain Kyle, and also move back to a firm that wants to continue to grow.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Okay. I'm excited that we get to keep Kyle. I mean, point blank, Kyle, you've been an asset, not only to this board, but I think to this district and community with the way that you help us, the way that you say things, the way that you frame it in a very understandable manner. And I think that's an invaluable service to us. And so I'm glad that we can, continue to have you on here with us. So thanks, man.
I agree. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Rayan.
If it was anybody else, Kyle, I wouldn't be voting yes.
Agreed. Agreed. Any other comments? If not,
I just had
go ahead,
one
Carrie.
quickly.
Sorry.
So we moved away from Whistler originally because of their approach and also their solicitor. I did have concern about moving back because we left for a reason, but one of the things that helped at least convince me about it was not only that we keep Kyle, but also that he has the potential of being in a leadership role to shape that organization. Organizations often fail not because of the people on the bottom floor of it or the people on the front lines, but it's the people at the leadership level. So we get to keep Kyle, and hopefully that gets to improve that company, and so it's a win-win. So I was convinced from a no to a yes. So I think it's a good thing for us. We get potentially 2 wins out of it.
Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else? And I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the hands up when they're up there. I apologize. Hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Melanie,
Thank you, Kyle.
is there a way I can make make a motion to approve action items 2, 3, and 4? 2 would be a motion to approve Sweet Stevens, Katz & Williams LLP as special counsel for the district effective March 15th. As for matters determined by the superintendent, motion to approve the agreement with Delta T Group for PCA services, and a motion to approve the settlement agreement and release between Upper Park and students in a student matter. Do I have a second?
I'm fine with that.
Second.
Discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's passed. Next would be 5, motion to approve a waiver of a formal hearing agreement for a student whose name is
I'll
on
make that
file.
motion.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next would be motion to approve the recommendation to increase in-person classroom instruction from the current hybrid model to a 4-day-a-week in-person instructional model, as well as maintaining a K-12 virtual option, K-5 UPOLA, and 6 to 12 full virtual.
I'll make that motion.
22.
Second.
Discussion? I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on this.
I'd like to amend that motion to 5-day in person.
Madam President, so there is no second.
Okay.
So you can continue on with any discussion.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Any discussion?
Me?
Hearing none? Oh,
Wait.
sorry, Mike.
Sorry. This has really been a tricky, I mean, trying to navigate this whole COVID thing has really been tricky. It's funny because a year ago today is when it really kind of got big when the, as a basketball fan, when the NBA shut down a game. And, you know, from there, it was 2 days later that we were shutting down. And it's, you know, it's been challenging for all of us in a variety of ways, you know, whether it's work or kids or whatever. And the decisions we've tried to make as a board, we've tried to make, you know, the best possible decisions we can. And, you know, one of the things that we've done, me, is we've always, if somebody can mute, somehow I'm getting some feedback. Thanks. To me, we've always kind of leaned on our administrators, right? We've kind of leaned on, you know, what Dr. Roach, Dr. Farina, you know, and the crew are saying. And it's tough, you know, because for me, one of the things that was challenging was the distance, you know, about the distance. And I know we're going to try to do our best. You know, obviously the buses is tough, so be helpful if people can drive their kids. Granted, I understand that that can be challenging, you know, to find the time to do that if you work and what your schedule is, single parents and stuff like that. But, you know, it feels like maybe now is the time to do this, to get them back 4 days a week and to give them that opportunity to, you know, get some more in-person instruction. I just would, you know, please, please, please try to keep as much possible space as you can. Administrators, teachers, principals, everybody else. And obviously I know we got all the guidelines to follow and stuff like that, but let's just, you know, make sure we're doing everything, you know, crossing our T's and dotting our I's if we're going to do this.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a quick comment.
Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think we're in the right trajectory, and we're also having the vaccinations that are helping the more at-risk population. So I think we're moving in the right direction to be able to do this finally. We've gotten a lot of emails from people. They're heartbreaking emails about what their children are going through. Many of us on the board have children in the same boat. Basically, it's been a really tough position for the country and the world, but we are moving in the right direction. So I think now is the right time to be able to do this. I would just say one final observation. When I see the numbers that Dr. Roach reports for our area, even though we're the most spread out district, we still have a higher positivity rate and a higher per 100,000 rate in general than some of our more populated areas. So this is going to put a little more pressure on our system, our community as a whole. So please, everybody in the community, make sure you take advantage of the vaccinations if you can, and make sure you wear your masks, because our students will really depend on it. So that's my comment.
Carrie. Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands. With all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Melanie, can I make a motion to approve Ms. Pennypacker as our board director for the NSBA virtual conference?
Second.
You may. Discussion. I just want to say thank you, Peg, for going. Appreciate that. Or not going, but kind of going. Kind of going. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you again. And now I will turn this over to Mr. Cunningham.
Okay, if everyone would go to our financial reports, it's the attachment there. We're going to be first going to page 22. Page 22 through 25 here is our general fund expenditures, and I would like to make a motion to approve our general fund expenditures in the amount of $1,169,222.75. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Judy. Do we have any discussion?
I just have a question on check number 11839, which is Accelerated Accelerate Education Inc. for 19,000. Just try to ask when it's one I don't recognize.
That was for print materials.
They're for, okay, they're for workbooks. That's partial shipment for elementary.
Thank you. That's it for now.
What happened to 11825?
Oh, interesting that you should ask that. Prior to doing the check, I questioned the attorney whether I should make it out because of one of the individuals being deceased. And they didn't get back to me. And then she said, well, it says in there the document. I said, okay, I'm going to file the document, but that may be an issue. So we issued the check and the bank would not cash it. So we need to void it, and you will see it on probably next month. As we're reissuing it, it will show up on the next list of payments.
Thanks, Sandy. Any other questions?
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to pages 20 to 27. Those are our capital projects and capital reserve payments. I'd like to make a motion to approve those in the amount of $76,904.40. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. Any discussion?
I do. I'd like to know what's Buzzburger. For $9,475.
Somebody needs to mute theirs. I think it's Keith.
Keith's muted. Oh, okay. While Sandy's not Sandy's looking, but Mr. Kenwood said it's the Marlboro Playground. Thank you.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just have two things. The Miller Flooring Company, that is the repair of the middle school gym floor, and also the stage area, and we'll be reimbursed that from part of that then from Borough.
Yeah, it was part of a change order reducing boroughs to pay Miller.
Okay. And I also, no, I won't say it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, if everyone would go to pages 28 through 45, these are per capita tax exonerations that we need to approve for people who have deceased, moved, duplicated, non-residents, so on and so forth. I'd like to make a motion to approve all per capita tax exonerations as supplied. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. Any discussions?
What does
the
E
E
mean?
mean again?
What does the E mean? That makes sense. That was it.
Here.
Good. Any other discussions?
She was muted. What was E?
I'm sorry,
Exonerations.
Sorry about
Isn't that
that.
what we're approving?
Pardon me?
They were previously exonerated.
They're ones that applications had come in, but they were delayed in getting to us, but they were timely.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, back to you, Melanie.
Thank you. I have to see where we're getting here. Okay, so do we have any new follow-up items? I don't believe we do. No, I don't think so. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to public comment. Do we have any public comments?
We have Jennifer Hartzell.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, just your township of residence, please.
East Greenville.
Thank you, Jennifer. You're good.
You're welcome. I'm going to ask that the moderator stop lowering my hand when I raise it in the middle of the meeting. 2, I want to know, will tech students need to be virtual on March 18th, or will busing be provided? The new last day will be the 11th, if that is correct, with the new 4-day schedule. And if we're the only school mandating testing for our sports player, then it is not equal, because it takes 5 to 7 days after contact to test positive, which means we'll be testing positive a day or 2 before game day, which means we'll have to cancel a lot of game days if we do have positive players. So if you could expand on the 3 questions I had, I would appreciate it. And I'm going to end my time. Thank you.
Who wants to tackle that?
I'm not sure I understand with transportation on March 18th.
Yeah, we'll check into it. I'm not sure it's
Yeah.
possible based upon the non-pub, and that's even questionable. So
I
that's,
wasn't sure if you guys were expecting the high school students to be virtual for tech also that day, or if busing would still be provided so that they could attend their tech classes.
as of right now, the conversation we had with the bus company was with 31 bus drivers. They were recommending the virtual day because they thought they were going to be completely knocked out based upon that, with the anticipation of people having reactions to the doses. So we'll get back to you, and I'll work with Dr. Carpenter to communicate that with the families, but I don't know if that's feasible at this time for that one day.
And is June 11th the last day?
Yes.
Okay, I just forget.
Based
Thank
upon
you.
right now.
Based upon the
That goes
calendar,
with the tech school also, correct?
yes, they would finish on the last day, or whatever. Again, I don't know if their schedule ends a day or 2 early, but that is the last day based upon the.
I know tech schedule is either the 10th or the 11th. So I just wanted to clarify because I do have a tech student.
Yeah, sometimes they work with both 3 school districts to see what their schedule and their calendar is, so.
Okay. And then about the testing for our sports players.
Sure. As it relates to point of care testing, truthfully, the district is doing both symptomatic and asymptomatic students. There's a significant amount of data that antigen testing using the BinX now really does detect the presence of viral load. Yes, I understand that sometimes it may miss it the first time because there's not enough viral load for it to be positive. As I mentioned, the sensitivity is around 97.5% to detect it. What I would say is positive cases are going to be quarantined, whether they're caught this Monday or the following Monday. The point is to be able to detect it, to respond to it, and to mitigate it in order to protect the instructional environment.
So we would be contacting the other teams that we had played with in the last 2 weeks with a positive case on the team.
So we have a responsibility to work with the Montgomery County Office of Public Health to notify them of any positive case. Contact tracing would be turned over to those individuals. Yes, we do talk about positive cases in the play arena, and that has happened where both teams have had to cease participation because of a positive case on one team or another. And sometimes it happened frequently over the course of the winter, and those were, obviously our higher risk sports where games were canceled. They could not play and needed to be rescheduled, Upper Perk included. So yeah, that is a reality of positive cases that we may have to, and Mr. Kurzwig and I have talked a lot about it. If a positive case is detected, we'll make our best effort to reschedule any event.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Who do we have next up?
All right. We have Allison Terrio. Hi, Allison, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Thank you for letting me speak. I
Can you
guess
tell us-
congratulations on.
Can you
Oh,
tell
I'm
us?
sorry.
I'm sorry. Can you tell us where you're from?
Yep, I am from Pennsburg. And I just wanted to say, my children are I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader in the UPOLA program. And I'm happy you guys are able to go back to school 4 days a week. I will be keeping my girls in the UPOLA program. And my only concern was when Dr. Farina was speaking about when kids need to quarantine that are in school, to possibly be sending them into the UPOLA program for their quarantine period. And I was just hoping that if you could possibly look at other options for that, because just going from the switch, but my girls have been in the UPOLA program since August, and doing that switch from January, where the full virtual kids came into the UPOLA classroom, there was a big learning curve for those kids, being that this was a longer school day for them. They're not used to that time being virtual all day. And I know that it was just, at that time, it was a big learning curve. It took a couple of weeks to get those kids adjusted. It makes me nervous that you're going to be putting random kids in there as they need to quarantine in and out of those classrooms. I think it's going to be a very big disruption for the UPOLA kids that are in those classrooms, and that I hope you could possibly look into other options for those kids that need to quarantine. I don't know what those options would be, but I just hope that you'd be considerate or consider how those other kids or how those teachers would be having kids coming in and out of the classroom at different times. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jean Doloff. Hi, Jean. Please give us your first and last name and township of residence.
Gene Dolph, Upper Hanover. I have 2 comments and a question. First of all, thank you very much for going a 4-day. I do appreciate it. It's long overdue, and I think it's a great thing for the district, great thing for the kids. You know, get the hiccups out of the way this spring so we can open up in a very strong way next fall. So thanks very much. I do appreciate it. On the mandatory testing, I think for spring sports, I think that's definitely heavy-handed. And I think it's going to open Pandora's box. And my sense is that spring sports are going to be very disrupted by it. And my question is, when is the teacher union contract going to be renegotiated? And that's it.
Thanks, Jean.
We have 1 more year. Yeah, Jean, we have 1 more year of the teacher contract.
So next January it will start.
So it ends 21.
22. It ends June 30th of 2022. Negotiations would formally start in January of 22.
Well, one further comment. I hope the board comes with very sharp pencils and remembers what we've been through. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Ed David Heiser. Ed, as was the first time, I need to promote you to a panelist, which means that we will see you. Hi, Ed, can you hear us? Ed? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Hi, it's Linda David Heiser in Hereford Township.
Thank you, Linda.
So I just have a question. With this mandatory testing you're doing for athletes, are you planning to do this for other groups then that are close contact in school? You got band, core, anything close contact, or is it just these athletes?
As a district, we have not talked about. However, those are also deemed high risk. There has been conversation at the county level for band and choir in order to re-engage in those larger group ensemble type of activities, testing would be mandatory in those situations to gather ensembles. There's also been talk at the county for graduation and prom and testing in order to create a safe environment for everyone to be able to participate in those large scale.
So basically, it's almost going to be every student to come to school is probably going to have to get tested sooner or later.
No, at this point, we rolled out the opportunity for any family who's interested in having their children tested as a symptomatic student. We have staff who participate in weekly assurance testing, and it's always recommended, even by the Office of Public Health, for high-risk populations to engage in weekly assurance testing.
So then why are we making it mandatory for athletes if we're wearing masks anyway? Why can't it be optional?
So close contact and high-risk sports, masks or no mask, you know, the transfer of the virus potential is there, and sports are voluntary. And so where the academic setting is required.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Linda. We have one more. We have Christine Schmoyer. Hi, Christine, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Christine Schmoyer, Pennsburg. Two questions. One, Linda just mentioned there were some after-school activities that are going on. There are other groups and things that are not meeting in person. Is there a discussion about those groups meeting? I'm thinking, for example, the drama club, various clubs like that. The other thing I would ask is that my kids are at the high school, so I'm specifically asking for the high school. Is there a way to consider when they all go back to 4 days, reseating at lunch, because the way they were seated is just however they were in line, and they don't necessarily get to sit near their friends. So I would imagine that there would have to be some reseating because of the number of students that would be there. But if there would be a way to allow the students to gather with their friends so they could sit with their friends, as opposed to just a random however they showed up in line. I don't know if that's up to the principal or whatever, but I would ask that that be considered to help enhance the socialization at the in-person session. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Christine. I can tell you, yeah, I mean, we would defer to the principals to talk about seating arrangements in the classroom. As far as activities and clubs, right now we're still, you know, on our slide earlier, we're sort of just prioritizing the instructional environment right now, athletics as well, you know, but certainly that is a topic that will continue to be discussed.
Okay, I was actually asking about lunch, reseating at lunch.
No, yeah, no, I know. And
I'm sorry, I
but
thought you said in the
you
classroom.
ask if clubs and activities. I'm sorry,
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes, in the cafeterias and at lunch.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
We have, let me see, I'm trying to, we have Kara Beck. Hi, Kara, please, can you give us your township, full name and township of residence?
Hi, yes, are you able to hear me?
We are able to hear you.
My name is Kara Beck, and I'm in East Greenville.
Thank you.
So I'm glad to hear that you're all going back 4 days. Unfortunately, it's a little late for my family as we've chosen to leave the district because of the virtual situation, and we're going somewhere where we have 5 days in person. But I just wanted to make a comment that when everybody's going around saying, you know, the testing is no big deal, all this stuff. I actually have a kid in each school, grade level, elementary, middle, and high school, one who presented with a symptom at the nurse's office a few weeks back. And at that point, my other two who were in the different schools were immediately called down to the nurse's office. I have a first grader who was terrified. She was put in a tent-like situation and held there until my other child was tested. And then my daughter, who's in the high school, had the same situation, brought in the high school and was quarantined, missed her tech class was so upset she missed a test, a project. So it was a big deal. So to say that testing these kids for sports and testing them at school and all this stuff isn't a big deal, it is just not true. And that's really all I have to say, but that I wanted that to be known.
Kara, I think we meant the test itself. We were talking about the actual test.
Right.
And the way
but
it's swapped.
I understand. Oh, no, I understand that. I've had both tests myself, but to say, you'd be willing to do it each week because it's not a big deal, maybe to a grown adult, but to a first grader, a kid in high school, a kid in middle school, to be quarantined in a tent-like situation was a big deal. And to have the test come back not positive and, and they missed a test and did all this because we took it to such extremes, it's just, disheartening.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. Thank you.
And it's the whole process can be, I could see how for a first grader, especially, and for any kid, in a situation like that where you have other things and you're getting pulled out of your routine, how that could be like a big impact, especially for your little one. So
yeah, absolutely. Point taken.
And I just want to remind, this is a nice place to remind families that the questions in the symptom checker, the second question is if anybody in your home is symptomatic, no one should come to school. And so we don't want to have to do that. But the way that the exclusion recommendations are outlined, everyone in a home is treated as a probable case if they meet the criteria. And so, I absolutely 100% agree. The manner in which we talk to our elementary students about COVID, has to be very delicate and developmentally appropriate. So I certainly will take that back to our nursing team. We have Mary Cannon. Hi, Mary, can you hear us?
Yes, hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
I'm Hereford Township. I just would like to ask, and I know you guys have gone over it, and maybe some of us could be missing. Can we go into a little bit more detail on what the difference between the up to your brain test and the antigen test? Maybe that's could be a sticking point with some parents not understanding what that is. And I just want to say, this is so difficult for all of us. And I have said and continue to say that I think everybody's doing a great job. And I appreciate all the hard work that the administration is doing. You guys are in an awful position. You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I wish more people would be open-minded into understanding that and not be so harsh on the administration. The COVID put us in this position, not our administration. And I wish that there'd be more parents that would understand that you guys are doing the best that you can do and that you can be not happy about what we have to do in order for our kids to get back to school. But it doesn't mean we should be coming down on the teachers and the administration and the school board about it, because the whole thing just sucks, period. And I'm glad we're getting back to school and I'm glad there's options. I just wish that there was more people understanding that, because God forbid if we weren't putting these things in place, someone comes in and we have a huge outbreak and then we're back to square one where we were a year ago. So I commend everyone for what they're doing. And although I'm not always happy about some of the decisions or that we have to do, some of the things we have to do, but I don't by any means put the blame on any of you. I put it on COVID. So I wish everyone would keep that in mind. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks.
Oops.
And I just have to interject something funny. So I think in our new phrases in the dictionary, one of them should be up to the brain test.
And ultimately, that is the inherent difference is the tests that are molecular or the ones that you would get previously literally go into your entire sinus cavity to collect the specimen. The BinX Now test only requires 3 centimeters in the nasal cavity, just trying to collect the specimen. That's the level of the sensitivity that the test has, and it's able to detect that viral load. So, it shouldn't cause any tearing or coughing or nose bleeding, that people report when they get nasal pharyngeal COVID tests. So, you know, it is very different. I never had the other and I don't want it. So we do have one more. We have Melissa DeSantis. Hi, Melissa, can you hear us?
Yes, Melissa DeSantis, Pennsburg. I
Thank
have
you,
two
Melissa.
kids. Hi, I have two kids in youth POLA. And on the last transition, I asked about changes to the program and I was told that it would only be made better. And I think that having the UPOLA be the rotating door for quarantining families would be really disruptive to the UPOLA kids too. I share Allison's concerns that she expressed earlier. And 35 kids in a UPOLA class is a lot, and not having that, using that as the rotating door for quarantining families sounds like a really bad idea. I think it will be really detrimental and disruptive to UPOLA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay, so I don't think we have any more comments. I would like to turn this over to board comments. Do I have any board comments, anyone?
Oh, I
Mike,
do.
I see your hand up.
Yep.
This time I see you.
Yeah, that's okay. All good. Well, I hurt myself, so that's why I'm at home. One of the things that I hope that we do is one of the things that we've done in our other, other shifts and stuff like that is that we learn on the job. So obviously, as we transition to this 4-day thing, there's going to be bumps and hiccups, and the administration in the past and our teachers and all of our staff, principals, everybody have done a really good job of shifting that. So hopefully, making adjustments and stuff like that. We saw that in the COVID screening form, which was kind of intense there for a while. So hopefully that same sort of mindset continues. And I believe that it will, to hopefully make the process as easy as possible. And just real quick, I want to thank Chris for coming from the Western Center. They do some real amazing work down there. Oh, and one other thing, the Upper Park Education Foundation will have, once again, graduation signs for folks. So pay attention to our website and the Chamber of Commerce's website and Dr. Roach's emails, because there'll be some information about graduation signs from the Upper Park Education Foundation. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? I don't see anyone else with hands up. I'm sorry, Carrie.
Just real quick, quick observation. I think it's almost a year to the day when we went into lockdown. So it's a good, appropriate time to acknowledge that we're moving back in. And the only other comment I say is I really hope, God willing, that we can do graduation in person. For me as a board member, it's one of my favorite activities is to see all the students move into the world and be able to shake their hand and wish them well. So I do hope that we can do that in person. Again, God willing, that the disease progresses away and we can be optimistic. So.
Thanks, Carrie. Good thoughts, for sure. I would like to make I just want to remind everyone that we have some committee meetings next week. Monday, we have finance, Tuesday, policy, Thursday, extracurricular, and also facilities, if you're interested. And if I don't see any more hands up for board comments, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mike's
Okay, well,
opposed.
thank you.
No, I was
everyone.
just gonna say
Mike-
goodbye.
Yeah,
I
I
was
know, I
raising my
saw
hand.
Mike raising his hand there.
I'm not
I
opposed
was
to ending
wondering
it.
about that. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. It's 9:02. We will adjourn.
Good night,
And we'll
everybody.
See you soon. Good night.
Good night.